Welcome, everyone, to our podcast studio today from our BLC Digital Strategies podcast studio in Tyson's Corner. We have as our special guest today Yossi Levy, our friend and contact in Israel. Yossi, I would say good morning, but for you, it's good afternoon. How are you?
Good afternoon, Seth. Great to be here again.
Thank you. Thank you. Um, we are here today to talk about the latest in Israel. We're on the eighth month of war in Israel. Tragically, it continues to grind on, and the American media's coverage is at best superficial. So let's just dive right in so that we can jump right into the core. Help us understand latest developments, starting with the geopolitics of the moment from your perspective and the facts on the ground in Israel.
Yeah, Seth. So before I jump into this, I would like to again mention today it's 8 months. 8 months since October 7th. We are on June 7th. 8 months that we have elderly people, young ladies, soldiers, we have kids, mothers, young adults in captivity, in who knows where, chained in some tunnels, being abused, being raped. I can't even comprehend that. And I think that everybody who can do something as a part of the effort to get this
Hmm.
situation solved
Hmm.
needs to step up and make the rough decisions to get this situation solved.
And just to be clear, we're talking about over 100 people, right?
We're talking about over 120 people who are still in captivity. We need to remember we have more. Those are the ones that we don't have indications if they are alive or dead.
Hmm. Yeah, and unfortunately, that's not being discussed by the American media, but please continue.
Yeah. Furthermore, I'd like to recognize Next Star Media that's running the Rising the Heel show for firing Brianna Joy Gray after interviewing the sister of Romy Gonen, the young female that is in um, as a hostage now. She was so disrespectful to her during the interview, and I don't wish for anybody to be in the situation of that sister speaking behalf of her sister who is a hostage in some tunnel now. But to be so disrespectful, what they've been going through. So I just want to recognize this media channel for stepping up and doing the right thing.
Thank you for noting that. So there's just a lot going on right now. I'll give you the floor to help us understand the geopolitics of the moment.
Yeah. So as we know, this the war is evolving on both frontiers. The northern frontier, as you can see in the pictures that are seen now on the screen, this is not the Gaza. This is from the northern new security perimeter that was created on the 8th of October. Unfortunately, our problem is that people ask me constantly, Yossi, why we're not reaching peace? Constantly, I'm being engaged with this question, and the problem is I'm not sure that the Palestinian has the desire for peace. We've tried it numerous times. We go back to Oslo agreements in 1993. We can go to Y agreements in 1998. We had the Israeli disengagement from Gaza in 2005, and we did the maritime border dispute agreement with the Lebanese just 2 years ago. We have been constantly engaging, willing to make peace in this region. And I call it region because once there will be peace in Israel between us and the Palestinian, it will immediately implicate the entire region and will benefit everybody. And we don't
Hmm.
have the partner to do that. People need to understand we don't have the partner to do that.
Well, you're getting a lot of
Um,
pressure. Your supposed main partner is giving you a lot of pressure, micromanaging how you're allowed to do things. I've never seen anything like it. Even Ukraine was given a little bit more latitude lately. Israel's getting virtually no latitude, but yet they're still able to engage in Rafah and try to do what they can to protect Israel.
True. I mean, we are dealing with extreme radical movements. We have the Sunni Hamas, who are fundamental hatred and brutalism. That's what their belief is. They are against Christian. They are against Jews. They want to eliminate the Jews just for being Jews. They want to create a second Holocaust. That's their purpose, the elimination. And Jews are all over the world. Same
Hmm.
with Hezbollah and the Muslim Jihad. They are Shi'im, but they are leading the same path of fundamental hatred against the Jewish nation. And that's a problem. The world needs to understand that. That's not an Israeli problem, that's a global problem, and the world needs to step up and fight it. Otherwise, everybody's going to be in a mess. The
Well,
mess is
part
not
of
for Israel to take care of, it's a
yeah.
global mess.
Let's not forget that a core part of their chance is death to America as well. It's not just they don't just reserve their hatred for us. But you're absolutely right. Please continue.
Yeah. And people need to remember that Israel has been pretty much isolated in the need to fight terror. We're fighting terror internally. We're fighting terror from the West Bank. We have the northern border. We have the southern border. We have the Houthim who come now from over the Red Sea, and they have issues with us. We have the Syrians. We have Iran, who's pretty much pivoting everything that's happening in the region. But if we as a state will not protect the interests of the countries surrounding us in a much more broader um, overview, we will have major problems in the Middle East. We need to remember we have the Saudis, we have Abu Dhabi, we have those countries willing, and needing a peace treaty with Israel. They desire the diplomatic connections with Israel. We are their bridge for Europe, for technology, for trademarks, for commodities, for goods. It's needed. But currently,
Hmm.
obviously, they're also hesitant about it, given everything that is happening around this region. And
Hmm.
that's the world need to understand it's a global problem. It's not our
Yeah.
problem.
And it was the warming of the relations. There were many factors, but one of the main factors leading to October 7th was the warming relations for peace, prosperity, and commerce between Israel and Saudi Arabia that led to October 7th, which
Right,
which just goes to
right.
show
And
that it's not just about Israel.
it's not just about Israel. And you know, people, the Arab world cares so much about the Palestinians in Gaza with their lack of humanitarian needs, and we are abusing them, and we are killing them, and we are genociding the whole Palestinian state and its people. And yet, I'm asking why nobody who cares so much for the Palestinian opened their gates to them. How come? How come the border with Rafah is now higher than it was before this war started? How come the Jordanians, who 70% of their population are Palestinians, they love their brothers so much and they don't open or invite them or welcoming them in? They don't
Well,
have a
yeah.
place for 2 million Palestinians? That's
Hmm.
I'm very intrigued to understand how come the Jordanians who care about them so much. Keep in mind, on the Black October, the Jordanian slaughtered the Palestinians
Hmm.
among them. So everybody's so hypocrite about it.
Yeah.
Everybody are so two-faced about the
Hmm.
reality of the situation here, and it's just upsetting. You know, nobody speaks about the fact that since that Israel took over Rafah crossing, you know what
And
happened
explain,
since then?
please explain what Rafah crossing is for our viewers.
So Rafah crossing is basically the southern crossing for commodities and humanitarian aid,
Right.
the southern point of Gaza. It's
Right.
between us and the Egyptians and Gaza.
Right.
We took over this crossing once we penetrated Gaza as our last effort in this war down south. We took over the crossing. Guess what happened? More humanitarian aid, cheaper humanitarian aid. The reason why is that because we don't have Hamas there to tax its own people who they don't care about slightly bit even, but nobody talks about that.
And who are
So
attacking
the
the trucks?
humanitarian,
Yeah, they're
excuse me,
attacking and Hamas is attacking the trucks when they're coming in as
of
well.
course, of course, they used to attack the trucks. They used to eliminate those trucks, take over them, and whoever wanted any goods or commodities needed to pay them. Now it's not. This tax is not there. People can just get what they really need to survive. Now they don't care about their people. They don't care about their people in any way. Not on, and that, you know what? That's the easiest example.
Hmm.
They use them as human shields everywhere and anywhere.
Hmm.
They don't have a value for people's life, not
Hmm.
only their own people. Obviously, they saw their lack of care for humanity on the October 7th with their horrifying, brutal attack, with the way they rape and butcher organs of people. They
Hmm.
slaughtered individuals.
Hmm.
And
And I would
I
just
don't
add, by the
accept them.
sorry to interrupt, but I would just add that the mainstream American media is doing such a horrible job at trying to spend the least amount of effort to appreciate the finer distinctions. Within the last 24 hours, and actually within the past few short days, a couple of terrorists, some very significant senior terrorists, have been eliminated. And one was an attack a couple of days ago that was outside of the safe zone, even though it was inaccurate reported otherwise. And within the last 24 hours, 7 or 8 terrorists were eliminated. They used a UN location as a human
School, a
shield,
UN school.
a UN
Yes, yes,
school,
yes, yeah,
and
yes.
I was very frustrated to hear on the news today, Israel attacked a UN school and some civilians were killed. And at the very, very end, they said Israel reported that they believe that there may have been some terrorists there. I mean, it is absolutely unbelievable. So not only do they not care about their civilians, they are continuing to use them as human shields as recently as within the last 24 hours.
Yeah, and that's exactly the difference between
Hmm.
us. If we want to initiate any attack act, okay, any attack strike, we make sure that there are no casualties. We make sure that the damage, the collateral damage to any attack, despite the target, will be slim to none.
Certainly, there have been hundreds of thousands of texts, emails, leaflets dropped, everything, trying to get people who are civilians to head north to do everything that they can do to clear Rafah as they're going in there in a very strategic engagement. So certainly when you talk about the geopolitics, there is unfortunate, significant pressure even from the United States. Weapons were approved, but then from the White House, weapons were withheld. And the geopolitics of the moment are certainly very significant. What has been the impact of that on the war?
I think it impacted us in the sense that it didn't turn us to be more hesitant, but it definitely affect our ability to maneuver in a sense. I think that we are more hesitant. I feel that there is a lack of involvement with the war. I feel that in a sense we are stuck and held back because we have the negotiation constantly down south with regarding to the potential agreement, but it does in a way dismantle or hold back our strength of force that we can launch and present and in a sense eliminate our enemies.
Yossi,
Now
I know that
that's
there's still so much to cover, and I know that we've been talking about things that have been happening in the South, in other words, along the Gaza area and the Gaza envelope. Help us understand for a moment what's going on in the North. There were terrible fires that were happening in the North. Some of those fires have been brought under control, but the barrage of attacks is relentless. Help us understand and appreciate what's going on in the north and the effect of how that's impacting nearly or roughly 100,000 Israelis from not even being able to return home and to be refugees in their own state.
So basically, Seth, there is a war going on in the north. We just don't call it war. We call it that it's below the threshold of war, but it's a war. It's 100% war. We have we're daily bombarded with all sorts of ammunition from the north. There is no, I'll say, the war here. We're fighting a terrorist group. We're fighting a militia, a very massive one. They have no respect for civil communities and for the civil population. They will target everything and anything. They don't care if it's a kindergarten or if it's a base. Their purpose is to create damage. Their purpose is to just what just to create as much damage as possible without overseeing what's civil and what's army. They are all across the board. They create damage just for the purpose of creating damage. It's in a sense became an economical war now. I'll call it an economical war, even that we're not at war, at least by the definition. But what happened just in the last few days? Over 15,000, I'll put it in US measurement, acres have been burned. Agriculture, growing, farmers, plantation, national parks, forests, everything in the case of creating damage. Yes, there was some massive weather that helped that, but still, you should see the lines of houses being targeted. Yesterday, the largest shopping center in Kiryat Shmona, if you're bombing a shopping center, you're bombing it to hurt and target civilians. It's not an army base. You're targeting a civilian community.
Yeah, I haven't heard. Maybe I missed it in the news. I didn't hear the White House in America telling Hezbollah to not target civilians. But in any event, what help us understand a concept that America does not really hear much about at all, which is agricultural terrorism. There's economic terrorism. Help us understand how they are purposefully trying to impact Israel's food supply.
So, what are they doing? First of all, they started with the first line of villages and kibbutzim that are on the border. They targeted anything related to agriculture or farming. Mainly all the chicken growing and the eggs industry, which is an industry that a significant percentage of its being is up north, and they just eliminated it completely. Second phase, milking cows. Milking cows. A milking cow, if you don't milk it in 48 hours, she's very highly potentially going to die. People need to continue to milk cows, and they do it under fire. Yet, they target, next to my office, if you recall, a month ago, they were targeting our milking cow facilities. They are targeting any kind of fruits that we grow, from apples to pears to bananas, everything that they can. Now, the implications are immediate. It immediately affects our ability and the prices you feel it in the grocery shop when you go, because there is less availability, there is less supply, and the demand doesn't necessarily decreases. And they are doing that just in the purpose to create this economical damage. When they tear down houses in villages who are empty out of civil population, they do it in order to create damage to just as much as possible eliminate any facility that they can, and they don't oversee if it's a house or anything else. They just do not care about that.
Yeah, on October when we visited Kfar Aza in the Gaza envelope about a month and a half ago, and we learned so much. We learned that there were separate units of Hamas, separate units that bypassed the settlements, the kibbutzim, in order to go to the farms to destroy the irrigation systems and to burn chickens and cows alive, because that was part of the war strategy on October 7th, and Hezbollah is continuing to do that in the north. Continue to tell us more. I know that there's a lot more information, including what's going on with the regional players, the other countries in the region, and the latest developments as it relates to Israel. So, for example, what's
So,
going on with Egypt and so forth.
so for instance, with the Egyptian, it's kind of a slow dance nowadays because
Mm-hmm.
on one hand they are our allies. We have peace with them. It's delicate, it's fragile. We had an incident about a week ago that could very quickly escalate to something more broad, and it was very well contained on the Egyptian side, I must say, where an Egyptian soldier from the Egyptian side shot at Israeli border patrol unit, and they returned fire and they eliminated him and killed him. Yet it could very easily escalate into another sort of a frontier, and it was not. It was the flames were immediately reduced on the Egyptian side, and it was we were able to eliminate that problem. With that being said, they are participating in the humanitarian efforts. Just a few days ago, they were a part of a air parachuting of humanitarian aids with the Jordanians. So from their end, we do have the constant cooperation.
Mm-hmm.
But, and there's always a but to those questions, since we have those tunnels who lead into from Rafah into the Sinai desert on the Egyptian side.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, the Egyptians, to some level, to some extent, are being beneficiary of those tunnels. It's very easy for them to look the other way and not
Mm-hmm.
look into what's going in and out of the Sinai desert into Rafah and back and forth.
Mm-hmm.
Nowadays, it's more of a problem, but again, in the over broader picture, we are very delicate. And also notice the US doesn't have very little to none complaints to the efforts of the Egyptians, to their war involvement, to them being more proactive in the Sinai desert with those tunnels going in and out of Rafah. It's all a matter of broader interests within the region that
Mm-hmm.
obviously the US want to maintain on one hand and yet want to be gentle with us on the other. So everybody, all the players here are tango dancing with each other very
Mm-hmm.
slowly and calculating their maneuvers while we are taking all the hit.
Right. So the surrounding nations will not accept the Palestinians. You talked about the actions of Jordan. Egypt was so concerned about the infiltration of Palestinian civilians that they put a fleet of tanks on the border. Nobody is helping them other than Israel. No one is reliably putting in food supplies into Rafah in a reliable daily manner except Israel. But of course, they're the ones that end up getting attacked. Being sensitive to your time, because I know that you're always very generous with your time, just provide us with a little bit more information of some additional details that you would like to note that we haven't yet had the opportunity to cover. And also, I'd like to make sure that we close with an important question. How's your community and how can we help?
So thank you for asking about our community, and you've I must say that you've been always very engaging regarding our community. And the situation is not getting any easier. We are already in the understanding that the next fiscal school year 24-25 we will not do, and our kids will not return to their schools and to their homes,
Hmm.
and we need to find another area to relocate within Israel, to find another school system that will adopt us. It's adopting
Yeah.
us for the next school year. So it's another transition for our kids. It's another transition for us as adults and families. It's another transition for our pets. It sounds stupid, but it's another adjustment. um,
Mm-hmm.
and it comes with a lot of anxiety, a lot of worriness. People are very much occupied with our with the situation up north, because it does also has a lot of implication and effects on what will be our next destination, where can we be relocated to, because obviously for hotel reasons, which are making sense, I have to say, we will maybe not be able to stay at our location right now, down south. So now it's a period of time of 2 months where people are constantly being very worried. The level of anxiety is higher as to where we're going to be
Mm-hmm.
relocated, and I think that the efforts and the needs and what we could the use of is another. It's more funding and support,
Mm-hmm.
because every place we move to, we need to resettle ourselves. We need
Mm-hmm.
to rebuild our infrastructures and our facilities. We need to rebuild our youth and kids areas for them to stay, hang out, and have some sort of a system and a structure. We need to maintain our elderly people and their needs. We did a survey. We have an average of an every kibbutz elderly individual that dies per month in this war, and it's devastating.
Mm-hmm.
We have a very significant percent of the families that needs financial aid or are back on their payments, mortgages, and they
Mm-hmm.
are in debt. So
Yeah.
we're not looking for funding to cover those debts. That's not our need. We're looking for funding to support their current needs. We as a community vouch for each other. We vouch for our social needs and our kids' needs. They are the top priority. And
Mm-hmm.
every transition comes with a lot of needs that we have, and
Mm-hmm.
the support and the generosity that people like yourself and the community that you represent help us reach those targets.
I think it's important for people to understand. And again, my wife and I learned about this with our synagogue mission group when we were there just a couple of months ago. People can go to work because their offices are being bombed. The last time you and I talked, you showed me a picture of a missile that was hanging from a tree outside your office. People can't go to work. People's jobs are being fractured. People have to stay on top of their mortgages and their day-to-day life expenses for homes that they're refugees from and they can't go back to. Kids are getting relocated. If kids can't get, if there's roughly 100,000 refugees in Israel, and if kids can't be brought directly into the school in the area they're in right now, then you need to find another location. So you need a building, you need teachers, you need school supplies, you need a whole bunch of things. So the more that we
True.
can do here in the United States to help, not even just in terms of how things are going to be survivable 6 months from now, or even 6 weeks from now, but even 6 days from now. It's just important to understand that there's a lot going on in the ground. And at the end of this program, we will put up information that people can see to understand where they can provide a contribution. Yossi, it always feels that when we come to the end of our discussion, that it feels like we've barely scratched the surface. So, will you? Can I twist your arm to come back and talk to us again in a couple of weeks?
Please, I think that it's important. I bless you for the will and the desire to do that, and for being so passionate and a true Zionist and standing by us. I feel that it empowers us, and I will be more than welcome to come again. I would like to share, Seth, for just a quick second, that most likely during the summer months of July and August, me and my family, my wife and my kids, will take a tour on the U.S. in order to
Mm,
speak and come and stand before communities, whoever, whichever community all
mm,
across the U.S. that has the will to um, host us, have us speak to the people, Jews, Christians, who
mm-hmm.
have you, and represent and explain the situation. As we are trying
Yes.
very briefly to do here, we will be
Yeah.
more than welcome. They can reach out to us, they can contact us. We will be more than happy to be your guests.
Well, Yossi, let me just say as we wrap up today's broadcast that my wife Rachel and I would be delighted to host you and your family, to help cover expenses, to help make arrangements so that when you come to the Washington, D.C. area, we will make sure that we have an event, at least one, where we can have your back. We will cover you. We will arrange things. You have a whole community here of people, not just Jewish people, by the way. When we're out, we talk to people within our Jewish community, but there are other people here throughout the United States for all religious denominations. Their hearts are with you. So we're delighted to hear that. We'll have information at the end of this show in terms of how people can donate. We'll also have more information, and I'm very happy to hear that you'll be coming here in a couple of months. Rachel and I will be in touch with you and your beautiful family about that. Stay safe, and we will talk again both on the air and in person here very soon.
Thank you, Seth. I appreciate it. Thank you so much.